I know of an SRA survivor, for example, who was abused since a very young age, since she was practically a baby. And she has hundreds of altars, literally hundreds. It's not impossible for them to integrate all their altars into the core personality, but it usually takes years of therapy to do that. It is a survival mechanism, because the alternative, if they couldn't split into their different personalities, would have been simply losing their mind, having a complete mental breakdown. So in order to survive, they have this. And it's interesting to note, some SRA survivors get so used to it and see the positive side of it that they find it hard sometimes to let go of the separate alters and integrate them into their core personality, because they've grown rather fond of having that alter, or too used to it, perhaps.
Okay.
So one way, I think, to find out more about SRA in a particular location or city is to talk to the therapists who specialize in dealing with DID, and see if they're willing to share with you what they know. Some of them may be afraid to talk about SRA because they think that it will damage their careers if they do so, but others will be more willing to just be upfront about it because they believe in exposing this evil. In fact, the only way to stop this evil is to expose it. And for too many years, it's been hidden from public knowledge. So I was in this building full of SRA survivors who were shifting from one altar to another. They were badly damaged. I felt so sorry for them. It can be a shock to anyone who's not seen this before. And the doctor told me that the local member of parliament had visited him on another occasion recently, and that she did not last more than about 1.5 hours before she made some excuse to leave, because it was just too disturbing for her to see. But yeah, in that sense, I was thrown in the deep end, and I stayed there the whole day, finding out what I could, and hearing the stories, very sad stories of some of the survivors.
Now, some of the things you hear about Satanism compared to what you're talking about, I know there's people in the UK that run these, quote, satanic temples, and they will openly discuss how Satanism is about the worship of oneself, or the introspective behavior of facing your own problems or facing your own demons, looking inward. And it's sort of a love affair with yourself. So how do these people differ from these sort of satanic covens that you've investigated?
Well, I think in essence, they don't really differ from them very much, but they are presenting a very small aspect of what they really believe. For example, I do surveillance on Satanist covens, and I know that they like to meet not only on the dates of the satanic calendar, they also like to meet on the birth dates of their members, because, as you said earlier, what the Satanist temple claims, that they also believe in the worship of oneself. So for them, the birthday is like the birth of God, because they regard themselves as being gods. And Satanism is not only about worshiping the devil as God, but considering oneself as God. And so the birthdays of their members is a date for them to have a ritual and significant religious date, you could say. And so they haven't told the full story, which is that their worshipping themselves as gods does not negate their worshipping the devil as God. They're doing both. They're doing both. But they know people have generally a bad impression, very rightly so in my view, of the devil. So they keep the devil in the background and just say, oh, well, we're just worshipping ourselves. What's wrong with that? Well, the problem is that also leads to an attitude of we can do whatever we want. And there's no such thing as us doing wrong. We can do whatever we want, satisfy our desires, regardless of who it may harm, as long as we get our satisfaction. Because we are gods. We can do anything. God can do anything. I can do anything. And you've heard the phrase probably of do what thou wilt. Do whatever you want. And Anton LaVey, as you know, the former head of the Church of Satan in the USA, he summed it up as do whatever thou wilt is all the law that Satanists will have is to do whatever you want. And that, of course, includes doing whatever you want, even if it's at the expense of others, even if it causes harm to others, doesn't matter as long as you satisfy your wants. And after all, God can do whatever he wants. So I am a so-called God. I can do whatever I want. And all that matters is that I have my needs fulfilled, no matter how perverse those needs may be. Aleister Crowley, the leading Satanist in the UK, said the same thing. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that what Aleister Crowley said influenced Anton LaVey to say something very similar. And so this is the danger of this attitude of a person being God. It's not only that they can do whatever they want, they can do the most terrible things to others and justify it, not in an objective way, of course, it's purely subjective, but justify it to themselves on the belief that I'm all powerful, I'm God, I will decide what's right and wrong, because God decides what's right and wrong, and what's right is whatever satisfies my needs. So you imagine that belief in the hands of someone who believes that it's okay for adults to sexually abuse children. Well, as long as I get my needs satisfied, no matter how many children I abuse, do what thou wilt, I will do it. I am a God, and I will have my way. So this is the problem with this kind of presentation. They're trying to make Satanism seem harmless and respectable even, but they're not giving you the full picture. In practice, the full picture is you get practices like SRA, which of course they will more often than not, in fact, I've never heard of them actually acknowledging its existence, deny that it exists, because SRA is a very inconvenient reality that stops them from being mainstreamed. Especially in the USA, I believe Satanists are trying hard to get mainstream recognition as a supposedly respectable religion. Whereas in the UK, it's more hidden, but there are some moves towards more recognition. For example, in the Royal Navy in the UK, in 2004, they had recognition to have Satanist rituals done on Royal Navy ships. So
you're saying on the outside, basically, for face value and in terms of what they portray to the media is, like I mentioned before, it's an introspective look at worshiping oneself. You know, they don't portray that we can do whatever we want, and obviously the child abuse stuff, they don't want that to be in the public light. That's sort of once you get behind the veil, they reveal that to you. It sort of reminds me of Scientology. Are you familiar with Scientology?
Yes, but
So,
just
like,
to add what you mentioned about behind the veil, I know some British ex-Satanists who have since left Satanism, and they have blown the whistle on what goes on in Satanism. So some of the things I've said just now is backed up by those statements by ex-Satanists. That, as you rightly said, a lot of it is behind the veil, and they don't want the veil pulled. They want the veil to stay there.